that doesn't have any association with any of those lineages, any of those traditions. That we can, as I said before during our discussion over the tea, that why cannot we just build a direct connection with the Lord Buddha himself? Why do we have to follow all those long routes, through masters and all of those things? Why cannot we build? So that was a question asked in the class. And I do not have answer. I can say something but there wasn't, I knew that, I myself realized that my answer was not up to mark. So it was a difficult question for me as well. So therefore, what I'm trying to summarize with all of those things is that there is of course, as we discussed before, there is a reason for different traditions and different sects. In Tibetan Buddhism, mostly when it comes to Vajrayana practice, receiving empowerments, so then you have to follow a certain, receive the empowerment from a certain master. You have to read the manual, and so you have to take the lineage. So that becomes important. For example, let me give you an example. Why traditions or sects become important in some respect. For example, we believe that when Lord Buddha gave the first teaching on the Four Noble Truths, we know Lord Buddha gave the teaching to the first 5 students. And then the first 5 students give to another, it passed down. Till today, we have the oral transmission, all the oral lineage. In Tibetan traditions, we can receive the oral teaching on the Four Noble Truths teaching directly from someone, which can be, if you find the lineage, it will directly go to Lord Buddha. So then you find that when something is, it's not just the pure teaching that you read from your book, but what you listen from a particular teacher, he has that connection all the way to Buddha, whether it's true or not. So that really adds some special value to it. And it makes it more complete and precious. That's what people think. And it makes a difference. And lineage becomes important in this way. And another reason for the traditions, such kind of tradition, is that there are a lot of particular details or personal instruction, what we call it, that cannot be written down. For example, when Lord Buddha taught Four Noble Truths, the present copy of the text that we have in Tibetan or in Sanskrit is only a few pages. It's a very short teaching. But the interpretations that we have, that your one teacher can give about that, is enormous. So the text itself can be passed down, and you can print a new copy today, but all the personal explanations and all those things, instructions, all those things cannot be found in just one copy of text. So that's why in this respect, traditions become important for certain people. Okay, that is another important. But where does these traditions become problematic in all the countries or all the societies? When they started to consider one tradition superior to another, that's when it becomes problematic. The very idea of Hinayana or Mahayana is a very kind of discriminatory remark of looking down on someone and praising someone as high. But I don't know whether that's a really problem with the traditions. Maybe it is the problem with the people who are into those traditions, that they wanted to discriminate and consider yourself or your own tradition as the supreme. and look down on other traditions. So that's why the problem arises. And there's another important issue associated with it, which is what I called, in all the Buddhist traditions, what we call going after authentic, looking for authenticity in everything. Which is the authentic Buddhist teaching? How do you make sure that what you are teaching is authentic? So when we talk about authentic or pure teachings, how do we generally understand something as an authentic? If something is old, generally, for example, if you have heard directly from Lord Buddha, then what you say may be more authentic because there is less time gap between what you heard and the teacher. So there's the gap is shorter. So it becomes more authentic. Then the longer the distance or the gap between the original speaker and the present day listener, it becomes less authentic. So authentic becomes important. The second thing is, people sometimes say it can be authentic if the lineage is preserved. So that's why they say tradition is important, because tradition, even though in today's time, what you practice is not directly spoken to you by Buddha himself, but you heard from a book or you heard from a teacher. And in return, that teacher heard from someone, and you can trace the lineage all the way to Buddha. So if you can maintain the lineage and trace its origin all the way to Buddha, then what you practice becomes authentic. That is the second idea or second version of definition of authentic, how something can be authentic. And some people think that it doesn't have to be associated with lineage or closer to the original speaker, but as long as the essence is preserved, whatever the core message of that teaching is preserved, then everything can be authentic. So that's why the new kind of the traditions or the new idea of American Buddhism, for example, relies very heavily on the third category, that we are preserving the essence. Forget about the lineage, forget about all the other complicated multiple things, but if as long as you maintain the essence, so then it becomes authentic. So sometimes when you are too attached to being authentic, and then it creates another problem. I think this is the second way that sectarian or following a particular sect becomes problematic, because you started comparing your tradition with the other, your sect with the other, that we are more authentic than you. You are less authentic. So then here comes the second barrier, second problems, trying to go after something that which can be less or more authentic. So, so this is the general a kind of idea about how the different schools of thoughts, different traditions first evolved during Buddhist time, and then later on, and how following one particular traditions or a sect, how one can follow and those things. But I wanted to summarize all of that, that there is a particular message given by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. He says that when you follow one particular traditions, and if that traditions harms you from practicing another tradition, that means there is some problem with the traditions. That means you're being sectarian, or you're being too, what should I say, cling to your own traditions. So it is time to change the religion, or to change the sense. So that is the issue with the important issue in Tibetan Buddhism, especially with the Gelug schools, about being non-sectarian. So as long as one follows, because at the end of the day, different people comes with different mental states, needs. Some people maybe wanted to follow a general Buddhist idea. Young people, students, they maybe do not want to go into the technicalities or difficult or confusing definitions and all those things. Maybe they don't like it. They want a more simpler practice. They can choose that path. There is no wrong with that. But not everybody is same. Some people want to try a little bit more difficult and complicated practices. So for them, the traditions or the sects becomes important. Just following one particular sect or tradition doesn't mean that you are being sectarian or you're falling extreme on one sect. So my conclusion is that, as is what His Holiness always says, that as long as your own traditions, whatever practice that you do, doesn't really harm you, or if that tradition demands you to look down on other traditions or consider your own as the supreme traditions, then there is something wrong with it. I remember very clearly that His Holiness mentioned in one of his books about the true kinship of faith. This is one of the commitments of His Holiness to foster, to maintain a harmonious relationship with all religions in the world. Where His Holiness says that when he was in Tibet as a young man, studying Buddhism, and as the Dalai Lama, of course, when he read through those scriptures, he felt that Buddhism is the best religion in the world. It has the solution to bring you to liberation, to give you moksha, and so on. But after coming into exile, after having conversation with different religious practitioners, religious leaders in the world, reading different books, and then His Holiness wrote that was a big mistake to think that your own religion is the best. So that is being non-sectarian, a pure non-sectarian. So, and he distinguished between two things, faith and respect. He said that faith and devotion is a very particular or personal thing that you have for your own religion or tradition, but equal respect is demanded for every religious tradition in the world. So that is what he distinguished between these two. And I find even the argument that His Holiness put forward about truth, as we talk about authentic, when you say that Buddhism is the best religion in the world, if you hold that position, generally I'm saying, or if you say that my own traditions that comes from my own teacher is the best tradition in the world. The main reason is that you believe that there is only one truth, one religion, one truth. But His Holiness, on the contrary, says that the truth is also relative. There is not one absolute truth. So for something which is true to you, something which is true to you may not be true to others. Just as there is not a universal medicine, what works for someone may not work for another. So this is the argument that His Holiness put forward, and I really find it very rational and convincing that having equal respect for every religion is a must, being non-sectarian. But that doesn't mean that his own dedication towards his own practice becomes less. That is not the case. And as I said before, the final thing that I wanted to conclude is that as the world evolves from now on, especially in this modern time, the non-sectarian approach becomes more and more important. So it will start to play major roles. So I think that when we say that the non-sectarian approach or the discipline within Buddhism playing a greater role in the world, doesn't mean that those who follow their own traditions have to feel frightened or feel insecure, or now that the mainstream or the general idea of Buddhism becomes more important. For example, there is a huge debate in America now, and I think all over the world, about the mindfulness programs. Because the last decade, last few years, even now, the mindfulness programs are becoming such a kind of hit and popular in all over the world, especially in America. And then we had a big debate on whether those mindfulness programs that these different organizations and the centers run, whether they're authentic Buddhist practice or not. So here again, the authentic comes, And I know that there are many really learned and very strong proponents of Buddhist ideas, professors, religious practitioners, who believe that what they do is not really Buddhist or not really Buddhism. It has nothing to do with Buddhism. And their thinking is that a mindfulness or Buddhism is generally not a short-term therapy or kind of a relief, stress buster. These are the words that they use. Buddhism is not like that. And Buddhism wants you to suffer. Buddhism wants you to see the suffering, understand the suffering, then comes out of it. So it's not a painkiller or something. So this is a very strong argument that I've seen to fall on the side that the modern day mindfulness programs have nothing to do with Buddhism. But I personally feel that is not entirely, may not be true. Because when we speak about Buddhism, what do you really mean by Buddhism? The first thing. What makes something Buddhist, something Buddhism? For example, we have, I do not remember now exactly in which museum, but there is a beautiful art in the Chinese, found in one of the, I think not in Donghang, but one of those archaeological sites where there is a portrait of Lord Buddha drawn with a halo, but very similar, holding a child. A portrait of Lord Buddha drawn holding a child with a halo. So when somebody is holding child, it has a very strong resemblance or similarities to Mary in a Christian. And with the halo, of course, Buddhism also has it, but the main structure of the face is very similar to Buddha. And so now, what do you say about this picture, this particular portrait? I do not have it here now to show. Is this a Buddhist portrait or is this a Christian portrait? How do you say? So this is a very important question that asks us, what do we mean by Buddhist first? What is the general definition? What makes something Buddhist, right? For example, we have a saying that when a Japanese traditional priest and a Tibetan monk from a Himalayan mountain meet together, they do not have any common thing to do together. Everything they do is different. Even wearing robes, chanting, practice, everything is different. They do not have any common thing to share. But they are both Buddhist. So what is that particular Buddhist thing that combined or that brings them together? So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we really narrow down and make the idea or the definition of Buddhist very restrictive, particularly to one very narrow area. That's why we say that when something is not related with liberation ideas, what we call soteriological ideas, when a particular practice doesn't talk about nirvana or liberation from samsara doesn't talk about renunciation, but temporary relief, then it is not Buddhist. So here, our Buddhist idea is totally about nirvana, liberation, renunciation. Of course, it's correct, but it's actually more than that. Right. So therefore, in that perspective, those ideas were taken from Buddhist scriptures, mindfulness, modern mindfulness. They were taken from Buddhist ideas, taken from Buddhist scriptures, and then they blended and redeveloped it to suit the modern people in their approach. And I think that's a perfect vehicle or a perfect medium in some way. And why do we want to distance ourselves from it and saying that they are not Buddhist? Why do we Buddhist traditions want to corner ourselves into a small group of people? Why don't we want to become bigger and take more people into our own group in this way? So yeah, that is the few ideas that I wanted to share. So that's all. So thank you so much for thank you so much for your time, listening, attention, and I know it's in New York now. It's not easy with the cold weather outside to go back to your home, and I really appreciate it. And as I said yesterday, but today is special because I finally had the opportunity to come in person to Shantideva Center, and I hope to come more often and see you all again. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any questions, please, any comments, anything that you want to share, you can disagree with me. I'm very happy. So.
Actually,
Yes.
my question is, came up in my mind from something you said yesterday about the Vinaya.
Yeah.
And you were saying that the monastery, you actually learn it very late in the course of your studies.
Yes.
And I thought that was very interesting, and I was curious of the thinking as to why that is, why sort of the ethical way comes later.
Not just the ethical way. What I really meant is the detailed structures and the complicated issues of monastic discipline. So those were taught much later. Because when you're a child, when you're in your 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you are not ready to understand even those intricacies, difficult things, even if you were explained. So that's why, in some way, the monastic system is designed very beautifully. So when you first enter the monastery, you were given a kind of a preparatory vow or an ordination, which is basically very simple. And as you grow up, then a more complicated, the second novice vows were given, and so on. The full ordination is given only when you are 20 years or above. So when you are adults, because by 18, all over the world, you are adult, you can vote. In some countries, you have the license to buy an alcohol. So the Buddhist context also thinks that when you are 20, you have the full authority to decide what you want to do. So that's when you're allowed to become fully ordained. And so all the details and the complicateds were explained to you. That's what I meant.
So you do study the Vinaya,
Oh, yes.
like around that time. I thought it was like, after like 10 years of Madhyamika study or something like that.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, not that late.
Rinpoche, I have a question on Zoom.
Sure, yes.
I'm gonna try to put it as clearly as possible. I'm asking for your recommendation because I'm currently taking Discovering Buddhism course through FPMT, and I've been looking into ordination. But I am wondering what your thoughts are on, can a layperson go as deeply with renunciation and with studying and learning about bodhicitta and learning about emptiness and learning about the Buddhist practices, can a layperson go as deeply as a monastic can, in your opinion?
Thank you so much for this really important question. There is a very beautiful saying by Milarepa, I think, where he said that in Tibetan, "Tumna kimdoang tarvayu," which means if you accomplished, if you practiced, the nirvana is right at your door. So, which means that you do not have to go into a monastic community to attain liberation. So, generally, to be free from samsara, to generate renunciation, or even practice bodhicitta, there is never a prerequisite for you to become ordained. It's never a part of it. So ordination is totally a different issue in some respect. So if you choose to be ordained, then the medium of ordination, once you're ordained, it says that you have more kind of opportunities, time, and conditions for you to practice and to get closer towards realizations and so on and so on. But other than that, I think there is not a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And because ordination and those things also need very strong kind of motivation, and also one need to really think about it, whether you want to take it or not. But the other practices like renunciations and practicing bodhicitta doesn't have to wait, and there is no risk factor. That's why we always say that renunciation and bodhicitta, whether you do it, take it today, and tomorrow, if you are not able to do it, there is no risk factor. There is no any bad consequences attached to it. But on the other hand, ordination is something that if you go well, it's a very great path. But if you do not go well with it, then there is also consequences attached to it. But generally, my answer is that there is no such prerequisites for someone to be ordained in order to develop renunciation and so forth.
Thank you. Thank you.
So ultimately, you don't need to be a Buddhist to become Buddha.
Exactly. I think we said that ultimately every human being, and actually every sentient being, will become Buddha. So I don't know whether you have to become Buddhist at some point, but generally it's no, you don't have to be a Buddhist to become Buddha. Everyone can become Buddha at some point of their life, in many, many years to come, or maybe even in this life. And I think I said before, right, it's very interesting sometimes to think that what we call Buddhism. So I think the English word Buddhism, Buddhaism, is a Western or the concept of ideas. And I told you that in Sanskrit or in Pali tradition, there is not an equivalent word for Buddhism. So in Tibetan also, we do not have an equivalent particular word for Buddhism. So Lord Buddha gave teaching, he showed the path, but somebody comes and collect all those teachings and give a title to it as Buddha's teaching. Maybe the correct translation would be Buddha's teaching instead of Buddhism.
Yeah, because he wasn't a Buddhist, he was Buddha.
Yeah, whether Lord Buddha himself was a Buddhist or not, I don't know. So it's still a difficult question.
Yeah.
Any
further comments?
So would you give advice to Americans about how to practice as opposed to?
No, you can continue.
I was just wondering if you have advice being, having lived in America and knowing our American mentality, if you have any particular advice for us with our practice?
What do you mean by American mentality?
I don't kind of hard, competitive, want it now, very impatient.
I think that maybe I don't understand American mentality very well, but generally I think that Buddhism is not designed for one particular community or one particular kind of people. Definitely, Lord Buddha's teachings were not only meant for Indian, because even though Lord Buddha was born in present in Nepal, and then he became enlightened, and he spent most of his life in India and gave all the teachings to Indians at that time, right? But it was not only meant for India, because the Tibetan people's mentality is, I think, completely different from Indian people's mentality. Tibetan peoples were considered even more difficult to tame, I think, compared to Western people. Because we have this beautiful story of 1,000-armed Charisi, Avalokiteshvara Buddha. Why Avalokiteshvara Buddha took the form of 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes and head? Because he needed to do a lot of work to tame the Tibetan people, which are so difficult to tame. So 2 hands were not enough, So even though the Indian people and Tibetan people were completely 2 different mentality, culture, way of thinking, living, and so on, but still Buddha's teaching completely were fitted for Tibetan people. And so that's why we can use these reasons that it would be completely, from the practice itself, there is nothing non-compatible or anything, even for American people or any people in the world. But if you say that, oh, we live in a very stressful society, difficult times, our balance between work and practice, most of the challenges, this is the real challenges. But I think the teachings were actually designed for such people. If you are living peacefully whole your life, if you have no problems, no challenges, then you don't need to practice in some way. Why do you need to practice, right? In some way. If you are fully healthy, if you have no issues, why you need to take medication? This is one way to look at it, what I meant is. So when you have those challenges, that is the time when we test ourselves, our ability to do it. So even I myself, in the last 1.5 years, find this very challenging, because in the monasteries, we have specific time for your, for example, your daily prayers. I'm just talking about one practice that I have, daily prayers. If you do it detail, sometimes it takes 1.5 hours, sometimes 2 hours. If you do it short, Tibetan monks sometimes do it while going in train, or nowadays, even while walking, we do it, and sometimes it will be finished in 10 to 20 minutes. But even that, while 2 years in Harvard, it was so difficult because the lifestyle was different. The timing and everything was different. So then I understood when Western friends talk about difficulty with work, life and work and the spiritual life balance there, the difficult, then I really understood what it really meant. So difficulty doesn't mean impossible. I learned this also by coming to West. I learned a lot of things. That is one thing. I have one professor, and he asked me to take Sanskrit last year, and I say, yeah, I will take, but I'm taking all the other courses, and I told him it's very difficult. It's a lot of pressure. Then he says, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. So I like it, and I took Sanskrit. So I really liked it. So so this is what we can think. I think it's difficult, definitely, but it's not impossible. And when something is difficult and you try to do it, and then when you are able to achieve a little or some from it, then you really see the joy in yourself. Because I met it, I did it, Otherwise, the self-confidence doesn't come. in Buddhism we call about joyous effort, but in reality, it's all about self-confidence. And so when we realize that we have the potential to do something, and when we actually do it and see the results, and then feel rejoiced towards one's achievement, and that will push us to more and more. So, but the main important thing is to make an attempt. Many times we are so afraid of the consequence and the excuses that we never make an attempt. So until we make an attempt, how will we know that something will succeed or not? So once we make an attempt, I think something will come up. For example, when I started my 6-year Geshe Garamba exam, the first few days of even enroll with the exam, I thought, oh my God, how's it going to happen? But then once it started, it just goes, and then I just tell myself, you will not die. That's for sure. It will be difficult, it will be challenging, but you will not die. So if that doesn't come, if that thing doesn't cause your death, then it's okay. You can still go and do it. And then it was correct. At the end of the 6th year, I didn't die. So I survived. Yes, do we have more questions? Yes, please.
One, there's a line from Shantideva the Bodhisattva, and the Dalai Lama is known for saying, I think he says it every day, it's like, for as long as space endures and as long as time remains, so may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world.
Yeah.
Is that literal? Like, that if somebody takes the Bodhisattva vow in that way, they just will keep being born over and over and over and over again forever? That's a long time.
There is a difference between, so you're talking about that aspirational line that is always quote. I think there is a difference between being your aspiration and a reality or actuality. So sometimes when you, I think the Shantideva usually takes the metaphor of a mother and her only child. So this is a very common metaphor in Buddhist literatures that you will always find that if a mother has only one child, and so in order to protect that child from any kind of obstacles, illness or anything, she will go all the way. She's ready to do anything. In reality, in practicality, but in her mind, if her child is diagnosed with an incurable disease, for God's sakes, no, but if such a thing happened, she is ready to take all the disease and the pain upon herself and then give her well-being to her only child. This is a fact that we all can agree to. We all can agree in practical world. Not every mother maybe, but most. So here, this is only her aspiration. This is only her love for her child. But in reality, it's impossible. There's no way that she can take her child's illness upon herself. It's not possible. So, but her aspiration, her love for her child, her affection for her child, make her go this extreme. Right. So therefore, Bodhisattvas are like that. They love the sentient beings so much. They love people, they love beings so much that they're ready to go any extent. And that is the kind of their aspiration. And so if somebody gives you a condition that if you are a Bodhisattva, and if somebody gives you a condition that you will be able to have one sentient being per 1 year. So you can just imagine the amount of people in New York City, how many years it's going to take you, but your aspiration is so strong that you're willing to accept that challenge. That doesn't mean that in practicality it's possible. So what I'm trying to say, to summarize, is that the aspirational motivation of bodhisattvas are so strong that sometimes those aspirations are not really practical, that it cannot be the real. So that's why when His Holiness prayed that, may I remain in this world as long as it takes to liberate all the sentient beings. In some way, it may be a reality for someone like His Holiness, like for some bodhisattvas. They may be reborn again and again to have all sentient beings, but not for everyone. That's what I think. What do you think? Sometimes it's being scary, right? We have a debate about who will attend, who will go to the Buddha land first. And then we say, if you're the last, it will be so scary because the whole world is empty. It's only you. If you are the only one who's left in New York City and everybody else has moved to another place, I think it will be quite scary. All the supermarkets, shopping malls, and restaurants and transport systems and everything is closed. So you are the only one left. I'm just kidding. Yeah, these are some debates.
Which I wanted to ask, I saw in your bio that you have the Tengyur Foundation in Tawang, and you also have Wisdom Bridges. I wonder if you could say a little bit about what they do.
Thank you for asking that question. Tengyur Foundation is founded primarily by me and some of my friends. I actually came from, I think I told you yesterday, very small Buddhist town in the northeastern part of India, bordering Bhutan and Tibet. It's also the birthplace of 6th Dalai Lama. So historically, politically, it's a very important place. But the situation, after 1959, we came under Indian governance. And so since we are a very small group of people, around 60 to 70,000, and it becomes a challenge for us to preserve our own culture, traditions, practice, because everything is associated with the mainland India. And so therefore, it was also with the advice of His Holiness for Buddhist monks to do more social work, to come into the society and do some beneficial projects, not just stay whole life in monasteries. So that's where I thought to start this foundation. So what we do in our foundation is basically we also give Dharma teachings like here in Shantideva Center. But until now in our hometown, it's only the monasteries or nunneries where teachings happen, and also not really this kind of teachings and never happen in our hometown. So the monasteries only have their own pujas, rituals for the monks, but there is actually no opportunity for the lay people to understand Dharma. So generally the whole Himalayan and the Tibetan lay people do not have any access to these rich cultural traditions like all of you do have here in the West and the East. So it was one of my attempts to copying FMT centers model to start something like that in Tawang. And so we started that since 2017. We invited Geshe and some teachers occasionally, and then conduct Lamrim courses, retreats, and so on and so on. So it went very well. So the public really appreciates like it. For the first time, they get to understand what Buddha is, how a refuge practice is, and so on and so forth. And in the coming years, we are planning to also host long-term retreats or maybe short-term retreats, and also kind of 1 month, 2 month retreats where we have participants also coming from other part of India, so that our hometown people will get motivation from it. So that is one project that we've been doing for last 5 to 7 years. And then at the same time, we also started a school for the kids to study Tibetan language, culture, and teach them about secular ethics, Buddhist principles. The school is only 1 year old now. So this is what we do. And so Western Bridges, we founded in New York. It's a non-profit 501 that tax rebate. So with the help of Robin, Annie, Paul, some of the board members, Susan, and also some volunteers, one Tibetan lady, Kunsang, and man, Rinchen. So we started this organization based in New York. We do not have a physical location, but what we really do is Western Bridge raise funds, awareness about our foundation, about educating the Himalayan children, and so support them. That's what we do.
And the school in how old are the kids in the school?
So this last year we accept kids 4 to 6. Yeah. So every year we accept kids from 4 to 6 to 7. So to, this age group, that's where they begin schooling in India.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So they get to learn secular ethics at that young age.
We try to incorporate some kind of secular ethics, not using the language, but in practicality about helping each other, cleaning one's own thing, being responsible for one's own food, and not even trying to teach about sharing their lunchbox with each other, you know. So sometimes the parents, when they send their kids, the parents tell the kids, don't share your lunchbox. Make sure you eat your own. And so, but we tell them to share sometimes, you know, against the wishes of the parents. And so I think that's very important to teach them about sharing at this young age. So, and another positive outcome of lunchbox sharing is that I find that some of the kids, the parents, due to their work schedules or other things, they prepare almost the same food every day. Same. So when they share, so that the kids also get opportunity to taste different food, because they can eat from another box, you know. And when I was there for 1 month, I make sure to go and take a little bite from all the lunch boxes as well. And it was from 12 and noon, so I say I cannot stop, but I have to go and take one bite from each of those lunch boxes. And to sit and eat with them is really a different feeling, different experience. Thank you. Then maybe we can end here.
What mandala offering is the request for teacher to remain. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with love, the room, 4 continents, the sun and moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May my venerable Lama's life be forever. His white divine action spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of blossom always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Dedication. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Tengyur Rinpoche, Makile Kwalan, Kitu, Yeva Nyamba Nekaya, The wish to have a long life of His Holiness, the wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Swift return prayer for the Lama Rinpoche, composed by His Holiness. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravas and practical Buddhas, victorious Lord and Father and Sons, along with the living masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the most precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience as the religious service. Incomparable and welcome to you, I make your bless. God's private single point of view for the sake of the Lord's one's teachings, also made way to those who are benefit by having this word, and for abundantly in peace, setting the power to peace, whatever it costs. Nevertheless, through the secret truth of the blessings of the ocean of the universe and the great grace of the Shiva, which children of the Buddhist ones, may the smile of your information safely glory for fortunate disciples.
Thank you so much, everyone. Those who are here in person and also have a good evening.